Welcome to the Wealth Chaperone Crash Course Series. This lesson is designed to show you the basics of chart construction and give you an understanding of the information contained in these charts. So let's begin. Most charts that we look at are called candlestick charts and look something like this. This is a daily chart of a stock. Every little green or red box represents the price action for one day on this stock. Let's take this chart apart and see how it is constructed so you can get a better understanding of what it is telling us. When the market opens, the stocks begin to trade. As they trade, the price of the stock goes up and down, and this movement is captured by drawing a line, like this one, at the end of the day. The lowest point in this line represents the lowest price the stock reached for that day. The top of the line represents the highest price the stock reached during that day. This line will also have a horizontal line on the left side. This represents the opening price of the stock when the market opened. We will also see a horizontal line on the right side. This represents the closing price of the stock at the end of the day. This symbol is called a bar, and to recap, it shows us the opening price, the closing price, as well as the high and the low prices for this stock. When we put many days together, the chart looks like this. Let's go back to a single bar again and consider what it is showing us. Notice in this case that there was more selling than buying during this day. We know this because the closing price is lower than that opening price. In other words, by the end of the day, the stock dropped in price. In order to make it easier to see these days on the chart, we can make the entire bar red. And for days where the closing price of the stock is higher than the opening price, obviously, there was more buying on this day. To make it easier to spot these days, we would make the entire bar green. Now, when we see the same chart, we can more easily spot the days when the price moved up or down simply by looking at the colors of the bars. As you begin to analyze these charts, however, you will want to know how far apart these moves are. In other words, how far apart are the opening and closing prices? The further apart they are, the more buying or selling that occurred. To make it easier to spot this distance, we use candlestick charts instead of bar charts. Candlestick charts are created simply by drawing a square or rectangle connecting the opening and closing prices, like this. If the closing prices are lower than the opening prices, then the box is colored in red, and vice versa. This is referred to as a candlestick. Now, let's look at that same chart, but using candlesticks. Now it is much easier to see the days that pushed the price higher, those in green, and the days that pushed the price lower, those in red. We can also see if the move up or down was a big one or a small one, simply by looking at the size of the rectangle. The last item we find on a basic chart is volume. In other words, how many shares were actually bought and sold that day. This is usually indicated at the bottom of the chart with lines such as these. If you follow the top of the line to the numbers on the right, you can see the total volume traded for that day. Now that you have an understanding of chart construction, proceed to Lesson 2 on basic chart reading, and you can learn some of the things you can derive by looking at these charts.